Genocide, no peace on stolen land.
Bill after bill after bill of anti-trans legislation being proposed and passed south of the border and now here in so-called Canada.
Try your best displacement! Displacement!
You should have started acting yesterday or years ago. That's my concern. You know why they died? Because they're houseless. Because they have no place to go.
When you look at the state of the world, it's hard not to be like, we're so especially when it comes to food. In the latest annual poverty report, Food Banks Canada gave the federal government a D-. Food banks across Canada saw over 2 million people, a 90% increase since 2019, meaning 1 out of 4 Canadians face food insecurity. As living costs rise while wages stay the same, more people, especially marginalized groups, face or near poverty. Addressing food insecurity requires a deep understanding of intersectionality.
The origin of intersectionality, the term was coined by Kimberly Crenshaw, who's a lawyer. You cannot fragment or silo people's identities. Everything is interconnected and affects and impacts each other. I don't think you can effectively make any impacts or change unless you look through an intersectional lens.
If we solve food insecurity, we're addressing poverty, inequality, climate resilience, and community well-being. However, our capitalist system thrives on us being insecure.
Food is really important that we talk about the opportunities it presents to us. And we need to, even though we're feeling kind of heavy and defeated, and there's lots of issues right now, we need to keep talking about food as an opportunity in our communities.
By localizing our efforts and uniting as a collective, we have the power to create real change and build true security. Let's take a closer look at who's flipping the script on how we grow, access, and share food in my community of Edmonton.
My name is Amelia Altmix. I am a beekeeper. I am the owner of a business called The Hive, Urban Community Agriculture, where I run different environmental education classes. And I also just newly, with my partner, started an indoor food growing part of our business as well. I feel like cooking and working with food was the first way I learned how to make things better when I was a kid. You know, we can make pancakes and then everyone's happy. And it's these moments of joy that you can collect around with people. So I always was really into food, but my family struggled with food security a lot when I was younger, particularly when my mom was a single parent. So we were often on food bank, we were often on different food supports in different ways. And yeah, there's not a lot of fresh food available in those supports. As I got older, I was just very curious how you can have a relationship with nature, but also grow your food, and in the city where resources were accessible to me. I saw that the city had approved an urban beekeeping certification course that year. They had opened up under the Urban Agriculture Initiative that you can have bees in your backyard. And I took the beekeeping course with Dustin Bezier in 2016, and I loved that I could engage with nature, have a way that I can have a hand in nature, which is something I really didn't feel like I had before, particularly as a full-time student who lived in an apartment. So having that ability to beekeep with my neighbor, beekeep then later at MacEwan, and then start this project at Alberta Ave was really a special way that I was able to engage with nature and just have a place to hang out in the city that reminded me how to check in with the seasons, and reminded me where my food came from, and I feel like the more necessity parts of life.
Yeah, I know it's gotten pretty grown in here. So this is what happens when you cram a few hundred trees in a very tight space. This here is actually the last 2 remaining seedlings from the Capilano apricots that I grew. We have some white walnuts back here. This is one of my favorite trees that we're growing. This is a Kentucky coffee tree. My name is Dustin Bajer, and I'm an educator, and I also spend a lot of time hanging out with bees and trees, so in that urban agriculture space. I had this really strong desire to imagine what a city could look like, or imagine what working with nature could be like instead of trying to beat it back. So if nature is this force, instead of trying to work against it, what if you could direct it? And what would it look like if you could, design a city or design a neighborhood or a community or a yard or a garden that harnessed that worked with it instead of against it? What would that look like? I think that question has guided the work that I've done over the last 15 years now.
Earth's General Store was started in 1991 by a local Edmontonian man named Michael Kalmanovich. I'm Rebecca McLeod, and I'm on the board for Earth's General Store. Earth's does a lot of things differently than other grocery stores, and I think that's what makes us so special and why we've been such an iconic place in the city for so long. We are really pioneering in the city sustainable food, and that shows through our collection of organic and fair trade products. And I would say that a lot of people, especially when Michael started it out, didn't feel like there was a lot of places, even in the big commercial grocery stores at that time, they weren't stocking these organic products, that there was very little discussion about fair trade. And so this became one of the only places in the city, really, that you could access food that was better for the planet. So I would say that our activism, our engagement with the community, and our support for different social justice movements has been also just as pioneering as the food, really. I want people to try and be a little bit more conscious and work within their capacity to try and support some of these alternatives like Earth's, because it really is a game where the odds are set against places like this. We are starting to break those barriers of what a grocery store or a grocery shopping experience even looks like, and I'm really proud of that, because we have built this kind of reciprocal nature, I think, with Edmonton, that again, we're not only asking you to come support us and to buy the products in our store, but we want to give back and be engaged in the community alongside you.
Yeah, wait me there, Noaba. My name is Agnes Somwa. That is my Canadian name. My original name is Yasewa Somwa. I'm from Ghana. And currently I work with Synconia Community Development Organization as the program manager. And I always tell these jokes that when I came here, I didn't even understand the meaning of this is my personal space. I was standing close to a lady in a bank, and then she turned and looked at me and she said, "Lady, move back. This is my personal space." So I went home and I asked my employer, I'm like, "Heather, what is the meaning of this is my personal space?" And she said, "Welcome to Canada." So with that premises, we realized that most of the children that came here, including my own children, get themselves into trouble just because they don't understand the culture here. And when we create these spaces for them, it helped them to fit in. The focus of Synconia was to help new immigrants feel at home in Canada, and especially in Edmonton. So we create activities and spaces, we take them to field trip, we involve them into other activities that will make them understand the culture. But we also create a day where we tell the kids, tell your parents to bring food, your own cultural food, dress up, come and showcase who you are, come and tell us stories of where you come from, bring something cultural from home. So we didn't want to assimilate the children, but we wanted them to appreciate who they are, at the same time enjoying the new environment where they have come to call home. And that is Synconia.
I'm S.J. Lafayette, and I am the executive director of the Pride Center of Edmonton. The Pride Center of Edmonton is a frontline queer-serving organization. It's existed since 1971. That was the seeds of when the organization started, and then it went through a number of different iterations over the years to evolve into what it is today. We don't officially have any food programs, but food insecurity it's affecting the vast majority of people living on or below the poverty line right now because of the expense of food. We've had to find ways to provide food for people or help them get access to food. And it's been actually a real challenge for us because food is so dominant. We found that we were getting to a point where we were being basically like a food provision agency, and that's not our expertise, and we have other things that we need to sort of focus on, recognizing that food also is essential. So we had to find a way that we could balance providing food, helping people get access to food, and then connect them to other resources.
Hey, there we go. Connect for Food isn't an organization. It isn't really even an initiative. It is a process. And you're part of that process here today, bringing people together and sharing ideas. There's a little bit too much of the lone wolf, people working in silos. We just don't seem to have the culture that we need for it, but I think that culture is building. The truth is that we all have a place to lead from. We can all stand up and lead in some way. So I think that old model, that old idea or mentality of there being a singular sort of leader that's going to take us onward through the fog isn't really so true anymore.
Perry and I have been working on the Connect for Food initiative for the past several years, and just learning about food systems and how do we fit in the food system.
It's not the intention of Connect for Food to be involved on an ongoing basis. It's more of a Connect for Food is a catalyst to get local initiatives started and find an organization that will champion the initiative, and you know, we move on and do the same thing somewhere else.
People are getting tired or burnt out, and it is true. But through these discussions, meeting people in the region, they realize, well, maybe I can really do something and do it well.
Yeah, so this is the Edmonton Urban Farm. It's currently managed by Explore Edmonton, and it was started 10 years ago by Northlands. It really was created as a way of demonstrating the potential of urban agriculture. They were looking for a company to come in and to start farming it, and what happened was, you know, a dozen community groups all put their hands up and said, hey, we'd be interested in farming a piece. And this space has turned into a really lovely sort of patchwork of gardeners and techniques and motivations, and it's really made for this interesting community space. One of the things that I think is missing from the conversation around urban ag is that urban agriculture is it's a community building tool. It's potentially, I don't know, a business building tool, but it is also potentially a climate mitigation strategy. I mean, if we can turn vacant spaces or, you know, monocultures in our city into diversity and, and at the same time be able to, sequester water that lands here. I mean, this is, that's chipped urban trees, right? Like that is something that could get thrown into a landfill or could get put on the ground here and protect the ground, hold on to the water that lands here, which is going to be preventing flooding downstream. It's going to be preventing drought locally. We've got tons of different plants around us, some of them perennials, some of them annuals. We're bringing in diversity, we're growing food, we're building community. It is perhaps an example or a tool for, working with that force of nature instead of against it. Unfortunately, it has been sold. The fact that this space is moving speaks to the temporary nature of urban agriculture.
We have so much underutilized space. The U of A did a report, something like 1/3 of the spaces in downtown Edmonton are empty. That's a huge amount of space, that's a huge amount of energy that's not being used, and that's a hugely underutilized asset that I feel like even in the most capitalistic sense could be utilized better. We have all these buildings that have heat on, that have electricity to them, but no food that's being grown in them. The original idea for the Hive, when we registered as a business in October 2023, was that we would approach large office spaces and offer that we would grow food in produce boxes, raised garden beds, in their office space. So this would offer them the vibrancy of having plants in your office. Of course, it's nice to see plants when you're working in an office for 8 hours a day, and certainly during the winter. But it would have that vibrancy component while offering us a space to grow food. We reached out to so many different organizations, bounced around to different folks in the city. Yeah, it was really difficult. We actually didn't end up finding any business towers that wanted to give us our space like that. So I got very lucky. We got in contact with REACH, which is the Safer Space Council for Edmonton, and they were able to fund us purchasing a couple grow beds in one space, Crystal Kids, and then one grow bed in Batista Calzone in the name of increasing vibrancy on the avenue. For that part of the project, it was more community aspect where those spaces we were starting the grow boxes in were able to utilize the produce. So Batista offering us that other space in his building meant that we could grow the business out so that we could supply restaurants and then slowly grow. So hopefully, one day we can get snag a spot in downtown Edmonton in a big business tower. Using spaces like that for food just also makes so much sense, right? And I don't think it has to be a doomsday situation that we get into for us to use our space as effectively.
Like here, or keep on going?
Yeah, I think this should be good.
We started planning in the winter, and we needed some people who have an idea of how to garden in Canada. I love gardening of all sorts, but I didn't have any idea of how to garden here in Edmonton. Back home, I don't have to create beds to put my plants on. So people like Dustin came in to train our community. I wanted to plant everything. Like when I heard Grandma saying that there's okra, my heart jumped. But it is not easy to plant okra here. So when Dustin came, he educated our community on crops that would be easy to plant here in Alberta. Synconia, we identify ourselves as grassroots, where we connect directly to the individual. And what has really surprised me is that in most of the activities, the people who come, we don't even speak the same language, but they feel comfortable with the space that we have created, the activities that we do. So I realized that it is not so much about the bigness of the community. No matter how small it is, if you are really making the connection, then the impact is going to be big. And that's what I've seen with Synconia.
You know, I've really found that community is a superpower. What's the best way of saying this? It's something I've been chewing on for a little bit, but haven't been able to articulate. It's like anything I can do, we can do better. We talk a lot about self-sufficiency and we all, you need to be able to take care of yourself. But there's another approach to that. And, you don't have to be the best at everything. And even if you could be, self-sufficiency is at most like a temporary state. I think we're better off together and building community. And there's land everywhere in this city. Access to land is, it doesn't have to be an issue if we don't want it to be. We just need to maybe challenge, what it's for and who it's for, and figure out ways to, for it to serve us.
Yeah, I think we have the potential for space and for resources if they're allocated appropriately. Do I think that can happen with how things are right now? Not necessarily, no. I think there has to be a lot of figuring out if urban agriculture and, just agriculture moving forward is going to be a community venture or a private business venture. Is there going to be public funding for something like this? I think it's necessary that there's public funding for something like this if we want our community members to have food consistently, but I don't think there's an understanding of the necessity of that yet. And unfortunately, I think it will require that food become astronomically expensive for people to actually consider redeveloping, rezoning, changing bylaws so that things can be more accessible.
I believe that we are absolutely hardwired for community and connection, and it's a design of capitalism to keep people separate and keep them siloed. If community, interconnectedness, interdependence is not prioritized, then it leads to individualism, and nature is not individualistic. The scarcity that we experience on a day-to-day basis is completely manufactured. Nature is not, scarcity doesn't exist in nature because nature is built on an idea of reciprocity, and that you take what you need. You know, it takes, you don't have animals taking more than they need, they give back, things evolve in a way to take care of each other.
I believe if you spoke to any food bank or any food security organization in Canada, they would all express concern about how fragile the system is, how we're dependent on contributions from the community of time, food, or money, and that's all being stretched to the very limit. People are relying on fragile systems for their most basic needs. There's major concerns in this country that need to be looked at and addressed, and there's an opportunity to do that, but it means talking to people who are doing this work.
There are challenges, definitely. We have big challenges, and it's overwhelming a lot of times. But I find that when we can get people together to talk about stuff, then we realize that there are solutions. And we need to trust each other, and we need to lift each other up, and we need to do something. We just can't wait for something to come. And I think that's what drives Perry and I to keep doing this process, is we can't wait for somebody to come save us, because there's nobody coming. We have to get people to be engaged and start actioning with making some change in our own communities, in our own regions, in our own backyards.
It's so special to me that I get to have my bees here and help have a project like this, and have been able to host elementary school kids coming and like talking to me about the bees and getting to have like field trips and stuff like that. So I do think there's something so special in being able to give that back to the community you were born and raised in, the people that you call community, whether you were born and raised there or not. But yeah, it is important to me that I get to make this place a little bit of a better place.
I really think that collective action is the only way forward. I absolutely think we need to continue pushing and advocating at a political level. I don't know if that's the answer. I think that the best answer is to try and look around you and see what in my community can I do right now, who can I connect with, who can I bring together, how can I prepare for these impacts that are coming. If it's not happening to you already, it will be happening to you, and it's happening to your neighbor. How can we start mitigating that right now? And I think the only option is building community and starting to create that infrastructure ourselves, because we cannot wait on these bigger governments or institutions, whatever it may be. They're not coming to save us.
Any significant revolutions or changes that have happened, it has been people that have bound together and said, we're not going to do this, and we're going to imagine a different future, and we're going to create a different future. So the piece that gives me hope is there are many people that are seeing the injustices, that are mobilized, and we will resist. We will resist forever. You cannot kill that primal design to resist.
That we look at history, that we know that all empires fall. And this is because they are built on shaky platforms, shaky foundations, and old regurgitated playbooks. They are built on fear misinformation, and manufactured human-imposed scarcity.
These are only a few people in Edmonton who are trying to change the way we access food, how we can come together and share ideas. Every person talks about the importance of community and how it changed their life.
There was a lot of coming together around food, and I feel like so much community building and like love and joy. My most joyful memories I have like around food.
People and the communities have the solutions. We've always felt that. Everyone has some solutions. We don't need a silver bullet. We need to work at the grassroots level. We know what the solutions are.
If we come together, we won't need the system. The system will need us. Because we found a way through each other to find hope.
All of what we're doing right now, we want to grow that, and we want to strengthen the community and connections that we have here to an even greater level.
We've got an effort right now to see if we can grow 1,000-year-old trees, and so there's a group of us who are, trying to figure out what that'll look like.
It's time to find those grassroots movements in your community and start to make real change. Because now is more important than ever.